Hello. Hello and welcome. It's just after noon on Wednesday, February 16th, where I sit on the west coast of Northern California. So whether it is your morning, your midday, your afternoon, your evening, I don't know, middle of the night, I hope you're not up in the middle of the night watching me with lipstick on my teeth. But wherever you are in space and time, I welcome you to this conversation. Whether you're watching the replay or you're joining live, absolutely welcome you to bring your voice, your questions, your inquiries, your shares, your anything that I may not have been clear on, where this seems to fit in your life or maybe doesn't. I just welcome all of that conversation. So hello, hello, hello. And there's kind of two pieces that are connected in this conversation today, or in this particular piece. And they're I would call them unique threads, but there are threads that are deeply interwoven or interconnected, which is very apropos for this particular live on polarities, or I'm being a little bit tongue-in-cheek here. I think that especially in the personal growth realm, even beyond relationship, the idea of polarity has just taken over, such that everything is about polarity or polarity or polarity, and inside of that, all polarities have largely been boiled down to one, which is masculine and feminine. And everywhere you look, whether it's in the relational, the intimate, the sexual, or even in the business world, in the leadership world, whenever you see teachers, coaches, facilitators, practitioners talking about it seems like every polarity gets boiled down to masculine or feminine. And even if we're gonna, some people will say more yin yang, but they're basically using the same framework, as though everything fits into either masculine, feminine, or into yin yang, or into, and rather than actually just all the polarities of life are what are so important for a whole, a full, a joyful life, for us to actually walk as embodied leaders, not just to think is this a moment for the masculine or for the feminine, which gets very abstract and large, or am I in my masculine or my feminine, but what is called for here? And even as I go into then this idea of polarities, I also want to say there are things that are just outside of polarities. Polarity is one factor in the universe. And there are things that are outside of polarity, not even just outside of polarity, but outside of polarities. And so not everything will fit into some form of a polarity, right? Beyond even where it's kind of been strangled into that it's always about some tension between the masculine and the feminine, even if it's not intended to be sexual in nature. That, it's sort of what is masculine leadership and what is feminine leadership, rather than, what is the wholeness, the fullness of leadership. And that we can pull in all the different threads and strands and expressions and polarities that are inherent in being a good leader in our family, a good leader in our relationship, a good leader in our work and our business, a good leader of our own life, right? So beyond even polarities, right, I would say polarities are greater than polarity, where we're and we try to fit every single thing into masculine, feminine. But even beyond polarities, I would say there's range. And this is the realm that I teach in, that I coach in, that I facilitate, and that I work in. I really work in the realm of range. It's also what I would call wholeness. But what I mean by that, again, is this, that, are we going to try to decide, is a mouse, what's the polarity of mouse? Like, do we go mouse wolf? Is that the, like, I don't know. And even beyond, like, is a mouse feminine or masculine? Does it have feminine or like beyond polarity, but even beyond polarities, do we hold within us all the realms of nature? And that there are parts of us that are mousy and parts of us that are snake-like and parts of us that are wolfy and parts of us that are jaguar and parts of us that are clam and parts of us that are tree and parts of us that are volcano and parts of us that are, then we get into, so the range, right? Some things we might still be able to go, oh, there's a polarity between winter and summer, right? We don't necessarily have to get into like, well, which one is masculine and feminine, but just, right, one end is summer and one end is winter. But even beyond that is just the range of everything that can happen in all of the seasons and all of the expressions. And so what is the range, right? What is the range? And this is really what we must build the capacity for, practice, expand, step into, embody, if we want to bring any form of embodied leadership into our life. Whether that's embodied leadership as an entrepreneur or in leading our team or in the work that we do or as a coach or as a creative or in how we lead our lives and live our lives or leadership within our families. This kind of whole and embodied leadership requires looking beyond just masculine and feminine into polarities, but even beyond polarities and into range. But in the realm of polarities, right, just to get out of, we often will try to fit all of these then into, this is where they've gotten squished. But if you actually take time and are willing to stop and feel, what are these? Even within, say, something like sun and moon, there are aspects of the feminine in sun and aspects of the feminine in moon and aspects of the masculine in sun and aspects of the masculine in sun, right? In each of these are more like the sun and the moon as polarities, not polarity. Let's not try to force everything into this one polarity of masculine and feminine, but just, these are just some like examples. I mean, if you're here either live or watching the replay, like please add yours, because the more that we can actually build on what is the wild, full and whole range of polarities beyond where we're trying to squish them into these like ones that we then think fall in the realm of masculine, feminine. Sun, moon, summer, winter, fast, slow, chaos, order, male, female, soft, hard, lead, follow, alone, together, agency, communion, work, like work life, either, this is more in the realm of either or than polarities necessarily, but where we think like I can either focus on work or on intimacy or relationship. Is it family or me time? But again, and then there are things that are outside the polarities. There's lead, follow, and then what's collaborate, right? Where is this in the realm of polarities? This is where we get into the realm of wholeness and range and truly understanding that it is the capacity to feel, to see, to understand, and to embody the wide range of polarities. That's so important in our leadership and important in terms of bringing the fullness and the wholeness of who we truly are and the gift we're meant to bring, or our deepest work into the world really requires the expression of range in these polarities. So me, you, and again, this is one of those ones. So where's we, right? Where's we? Hold or relax, expand or contract. And again, outside of expansion or contraction, what's, sustain or maintain. Light, dark, noise, silence, stillness, movement, structure, flow, work, play. And all of these, and this is where I see this being like they really what these what's the word I want here? Like the beauty, the power, and what these various polarities have to offer is minimized. It becomes sort of squinched and kinked when we try to come up with each of these and go, well, is this masculine or feminine? Let's just call agency masculine and communion feminine. Let's call silence masculine and expression or sound, feminine. Let's call stillness masculine and movement feminine, rather than, like, what is actually, there's stillness, and then there's movement, and then there's all the different kinds of stillness, and then there's all the different kinds of movement. There's all the different kinds of silence and all the different kinds of sound. And there's often also then this way that we don't really want the polarities. We want to mash them together and say, how can we make work like play? Rather than like, well, what if there is a distinction? And what if sometimes one is called for and sometimes the other is called for? And that true leadership or true wholeness or the embodiment of these is less about, also, we can understand these polarities, but it's less about the all or nothing, or trying to make them the same, but how do they weave together? How do they dance together? What is the interplay between chaos and order? How do they influence each other? How do they impact each other? How do they support and nourish and only make each other better? How does the interplay of structure and flow, or expansion and contraction, or agency and communion, or leadership and leading and following and collaborating, how do all of these actually have their right place and time, and also work together to be better and greater and more than any one part of the polarity could be on its own? And how does our capacity to actually deeply feel and expand our range? For instance, I might be more comfortable in stillness and silence. And part of the development of my leadership might be to expand into, more movement, more chaos, more sound, more expression, and allow that there be silence and that there be sound, and that these two actually weave and dance and interplay in a way that is a fuller, more whole expression of who I am in the world, or what my leadership might look like in the world. When we actually look at even just, these are just examples. Again, there's far more than these, but when we look at, the best yoga often asks for a multiplicity of some stillness, of some movement, of some holding, of some relaxing, of some expanding and some contracting, all at the same time. And actually the capacity to understand, where do we need to hold and where do we need to relax, and where is some movement called for and where is some stillness called for, is what allows like the most fully expressed version of yoga to arise and to be expressed or embodied through our being, through our body. The same could be said with, the best music, the best dance, the best art. And some of those terms in their broadest sense, I mean, we see this also when we see people playing sports, right? It's like art, right? We instead of calling it, we sort of call it art because we can actually see the development within a player or within a team of, again, this kind of agency and communion. I'm probably, like above my pay grade here, but it's just with like the Golden State Warriors, because I'm in California. We have Steph Curry on the team right now, and he's just an extraordinary player in and of himself, right? Kind of solo, and in his the way that he plays as a solo player. There are places where he needs to make the shot all on his own. And that is actually what will serve the team and serve the game. And then the beauty of Steph Curry as a player is that he's also an incredible team player. You know, watch how he relates to the rest of the team, both in the actual play, but also in the energetic and relational realm of relating to the team. He's like an incredible player all on his own, and he's an incredible team player. And that's part of what makes him actually like an all-round, if you're gonna call it holistic, like great player. And I would say it's kind of what makes it's like his embodied leadership is how he brings that to the team and how it all plays together. And there's often this idea then, right, of life as art. And how do we live our lives as art? And what that calls for, again, is the development of our capacity in this range. And yes, in all these different kind of polarities that I named, and far more than I could come up with, you know, just writing down here, right? I've got 20 or 25, but there's infinite polarities. And then there are these pieces that are outside the realm of polarities and are still valuable in terms of how we develop our range as beings, as humans, as creators, as artists, as leaders, as teachers, as entrepreneurs, as parents, as lovers, right? The more that we develop this range and the less that we try to like kink it all down into masculine and feminine, but even the more that we also don't try to kink it down into it's all this or all that, but it's the weave, it's the interplay. It's, you know, some moments of the day and some parts of my life call for 20% this, 80% this. And another part of my life will call for 50-50. And another part of my life will call for 10-90. And this moment now calls for actually like 100% this. That's very, very rare, you know, this, but there's a lot of all or nothing thinking, imagining, acting in the world rather than like, oh, what is actually called for? And the other thing that limits us when we put it all into masculine and feminine is that it's too easy as humans that mostly are born into, you know, apparently male or apparently female bodies. It's too easy for us to have an idea about which one is better when, rather than really opening to that wide, vast, you know, universal curiosity, like where we go like, what's really called for, depending on what I am most devoted to, most committed to, what truly wants to be created here through me. Is that more of this or more of this or something that's outside the realm completely? And this is where we get confused because we're like, is that masculine? Is that feminine? Which one should I be right now? Or which polarity, you know, which end of the pole am I supposed to fall into, rather than how do they weave together? Well, how can I develop my range? How can I understand what are my comfortable and habitual patterns? And I don't mean comfortable and habitual like they're bad and wrong, but the ones that I might fall into without putting more attention and more intention on it. And they can be beautiful and true expressions of ourselves, but they're only one avenue. You know, like water will follow the path of least resistance. And sometimes it's actually important to redirect water, you know, maybe greatly or maybe slightly. And sometimes that actually takes some real strong intention or attention. Like, yes, I know you want to go there. You can go there another time. This is a beautiful path for water. And we also want to build this pathway for the water of our being, you know, for what it might actually take for me to step into full embodiment of wholeness, or the full embodiment of my whole leadership, or to serve this particular relationship most beautifully, or this client, or this space that I am the holder or the leader of, depending on what part of my life we're talking about. So that's what it really means when we say, you know, make art out of your life, right? It means actual awareness of this wide range of polarities. And then understanding where are my comfortable and habitual places that all flow, and how do I begin to lean into and expand my range in some of these other arenas, and not just in the all or nothing that I've talked about, right? Fast and slow, alone and together, soft and hard, expand, contract, light, dark, silence, sound, stillness, movement, structure, flow. But even beyond that, one of the things that I'll often work with people on is different animal and natural archetypes, because they get us out of the human realm. They get us out of the, masculine, feminine realm. They get us out of the right and the wrong realm. And they get us into like, how does like jaguar move through imagining that I have a tail, and what does that add to my life, to my leadership? What is it to be light as a butter? Do I have the capacity? Can I develop my range in being light as a butterfly, so that I have that to draw upon when I need it? What is it? Muhammad Ali, what does he say? Float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. So that's polarities, right? That's actually, he was expressing polarities in that realm, and to have these capacities within ourselves. So the truth is that, in some ways we could say this has always been true, maybe, but it really feels like this is a time in the world where we can just no longer pretend that all the parts of our lives aren't connected, or that all of our lives aren't also interconnected with each other, and that somehow I can, only work on this part of myself, or only work on this part of myself, or only develop, this side of polarities, or only this, or that, I should be able to do everything this way. And I think we've just seen it doesn't work. It's simply not actually true in the universe. I would say, to me, the reason that polarities exist in this universe that we're all born into is an invitation to embody the full range of them. It's not, the polarities don't arise in this realm so that we can go, this one is better, or this one is better for all these people. It's so that we can actually understand and embody the weave and the interplay and the dance between them, how they serve and support and nourish each other, how the polarities themselves, in their not balance, but in their embrace and dance and play and weave with each other, make each other and everything better. They're greater than the sum of the parts. What happens when we bring sound and silence in right balance in a moment together is greater than either sound or silence could be. So that's truly why, this is the foundation in some way. I know it sounds abstract, but when we bring it into actual practice in our real lives and in our real bodies, and in the actual practice of exploring this range and actually moving it through our actual bodies, right, it becomes very, very practical. And that is the foundation of all my teachings. And it's truly the foundation on which my Fierce Grace program was built on. Fierce Grace, which was the name that came to me before it wasn't like I had all these thoughts about polarities and I was like, and now how will I name it so that it holds that? It was that name, and through time I realized, like, that's why, because this is what we do in that program, is both with our minds, right? Because it's not just head or heart, right? It's head and heart and gut and spine and intuition and thoughts and, but really, so, understanding and seeing and exploring and getting curious about and embodying and practicing in the realm of our comfortable polarities and in the realm of our comfortable range, and then also expanding, having a safe space, a safe container, a held container, a guided container in which to lean in and go like, oh, like this polarity feels, really uncomfortable or really awkward or really unpracticed or scary. And having that kind of space to like, but can I lean in 1% or 5% just to explore what might that even look or feel like? What might that make possible in this realm of creating art in my life, in the realm of developing me as a fuller and more whole leader, as a more effective leader, whether it's in my family or in the work that I want to bring into the world, or as an entrepreneur, or in guiding my life, or in knowing how to both lead and surrender in my intimate relationship. This work of polarities beyond masculine and feminine, and range beyond even just polarities, is essential for healthy relationships, for long-term relationships, for building sustainable business, for being the kind of leader that people actually want to and should follow. And the truth is that any part of these polarities or range that we don't practice, or that we avoid, or that we hide from, or that we want to ignore and pretend doesn't exist, it will come and bite us on the ass at some point. Some of us can get away with it for a while and be like, yeah, I'm in this realm and this works for me. And at some point, I guarantee, if you only practice in the dark, the light will bite you on the ass, and if you only move in the slow, the fast will bite you on the ass. And if you only, go in the realm of leadership, the following will bite you on the ass. And there's, when we could call it shadow, but again, that puts it in the realm of dark. And it's not always the darkness that bites us on the ass. It is that which we ignore, repress, deny, ignore, want to pretend doesn't exist. Imagine that if it wasn't part of us, we would be better people. Whatever that is what will eventually be our downfall. So the more that we can bring consciousness, intention, attention, devoted practice, awareness, compassionate awareness to, likely that we're something's going to come and bite us from underneath, and like have big upheaval that happens in our lives because of it. The more that we're like, oh, we can navigate, we can weave, we can, it's not about having a plan so much as we're not as derailed when the path that we were following suddenly leads somewhere we didn't expect. So practicing with the unexpected, making the most beautiful music, the most beautiful art, the most beautiful dance, stepping into the most holistic leadership. This is truly what we explore, experiment with, embody in the Fierce Grace Incubator. This may not have been the most directed guidance for a Facebook Live, but I hope that it expanded perspective and gives some realm of even beginning to see in the realm of polarities beyond just masculine and feminine. There's been this, it's almost like a domination of all polarities, where we try to look at anything that is a polarity and make it fit into one or the other, and not all of them do. And then even beyond that, right? What is beyond polarities, and where do we fall into all or nothing thinking, feeling, and acting, rather than really having the question, what is the weave? What is the dance? What is the interplay? And if you are a woman who, desires, longs, is called to, maybe is a little scared of practicing in this realm, exploring and practicing in a guided way, then the Fierce Grace Incubator might be for you. Really as a way to step into that whole embodied leadership in all aspects of your life and creation. Thank you for your attention, for your interest, for being here. Ciao.